Hi everybody, well, welcome to the channel. My name is Joel Pettit, and today I want to talk to you about transitioning from the active duty military into the civilian world, specifically a top-rated business school. Now, I was lucky enough to attend Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University. Now, I feel exceptionally fortunate to have been able to do so, and I wanted to share my story with other people, but especially my potential and current clients, because all my clients have to face transitioning from military to civilian, whether that comes to fruition or not remains to be seen for many people. However, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't contemplate it. So I wanted to dive right in and just talk about my story. So my background, I was an attorney before I joined the military. So I was a JAG. I went straight into legal assistance. So that's like divorce, adoption, consumer issues, things like that. And then I was promoted and went to be a deputy staff judge advocate at Marine Corps Installations East. So helped deal with legal issues, policy issues, advise on criminal matters, all the way from installations in Maine, all the way down to Florida. After that, I was given the chance to choose where I wanted to go next. So I chose actually to go to the informal PEB because no active duty Marine had done so. So I wanted to be the first to do that, kind of iron out the logistical and operational issues that the office was having, just because there was a lot of turnover. And then after that, went to the formal PEB up in DC. So that's my story. And when I decided to transition out, it was very difficult because I had to decide what I wanted to do. And of course, everyone looks at me and says, well, duh, you're an attorney. Well, the problem is that just because someone's an attorney or a doctor or an accountant doesn't mean you have to be that the rest of your life, right? I mean, I know the term one-trick pony is generally a derogatory, negative term, but to be frank, I couldn't stand being a one-trick pony. I couldn't stand the fact that people assumed I couldn't do math, or that I was this cold-blooded person because I saw people's, usually tough problems because they don't go to lawyers when they have good things to say. As I see those problems as dispassionately and analytically. So, and it wasn't just what other people said. It was the fact that I felt that I was slowly kind of morphing into that person because, everyone comes to you with those same issues and you keep answering them, and you just don't get to kind of expand on maybe not your hobbies, but things you're interested in. So for me, I took a step back and I said, what am I interested in? And I was interested in mathematics, data analysis, but I still wanted to work with people, so I didn't want to be in a back room or a back office job, so to speak. Also, I really wanted to just see other industries besides law. So I talked to my spouse, talked to a couple other people, and ultimately we agreed that it was really an MBA that was probably the best path. So then I had to think about costs and things like that. So if you're thinking about costs, think about an MBA, think about your GI Bill, but also the Yellow Ribbon program, and then scholarships on top of that. And depending on what state you recruited from or what state you're going to, you also might get benefits there. So it can get quite complicated. And then when I thought about, okay, what is this going to functionally look like? Meaning, what are my opportunities after the fact? Because, being an attorney, I had to make sure the juice was worth the squeeze, so to speak. So I reached out on LinkedIn, got a premium account, crafted about a 3 or 4 sentence long little outreach message, sent that to a lot of vets, and within a week, I would say my success rate was, I calculated it one time, I think it was like 88%, which is a crazy success rate for people reaching back out to you saying, yes, I will give you 15 minutes of my time just to talk to you and tell you my story. So that was great. So after a while, I realized, yes, I'm definitely going to be going for an MBA in either consulting or investment banking, finance, one of those types of fields, not necessarily marketing, potentially strategy, but consulting and investment banking were kind of my main 2 buckets I was looking at. So from there, I said, okay, well, I better take a test GMAT to see how I do. I took one, and yeah, it was bad. Let's just say the first number did not start with a 6 or a 7. So you can imagine how bad it was. So I decided, okay, let's analyze this and see where my weaknesses are. See, as they say in the military, my gaps in my surfaces, as Clausewitz would say. So went through that and realized that although I knew the math behind the questions, the method by which I was trying to tackle these questions in such a short time frame, that was the issue. And same thing with the verbal, meaning it was difficult not because I didn't know it, because I write for a living. It was the nuanced rules that most, I'd say, journalists, authors, and especially attorneys have to know, along with complex sentence structures and complex punctuation. That's not on the GMAT. So they have GMAT rules, so to speak. So I had to learn those. And I was kind of baffled on what resources not only were out there, but which ones were worth the money. And you can talk to a million people and get a million different answers. So I'm going to give you my answer. My answer was, because of my work schedule, I was not able to attend in person, and I didn't want to sit there and watch a 1 to 3 hour video at night or on the weekends because I can't ask a video questions. So what I realized was on-demand classes were better because they were not in chunks but little slivers, and because they were cheaper, what I found was I bought 2 of each type, meaning 2 quant and 2 verbal. And the reason I did that is because I looked for I looked at myself and said, hey, you may learn a certain way, but one I don't know, type of problem that a certain person describes and solves one way might not work for you. So have a backup, so to speak. So I looked for 2 quant courses that were taught very differently by 2 very different companies, and that's what I went with. And now I'm not going to give anybody names or anything like that because I don't endorse any companies on this channel. So not going to do it. The best thing to do, because also I don't want to give people, how can I put it, an anchor, so to speak. You should choose for yourself and investigate for yourself, because the way you learn, the way you test, the way you do these things is going to be different than mine. So I did also with verbal, and ironically enough, the best verbal program I found, a verbal program for non-English or non-native English speakers. Why is this? Because they break it down, I mean, bit by bit, and they strip away all the nuanced stuff in English, because people where their English is not a second language or is not a first language, it's a second language, they understand, hear English in a different way than native English speakers do. And for me, I was so steeped in all that nuance that having that clean, nice recitation of the GMAT rules and to understand them, just, oh my God. I mean, gates parted, doors open, the sunlight came in, it was amazing. So, but I know a lot of people probably would do that and say, this is boring, this is killing me, I can't pay attention. So that's kind of the nuance there. That's the idiosyncratic part that worked for me, maybe not everyone else. So I did that, and to be frank, my second test was in the mid-6s, and my final test that I actually took was in the mid-7s. And so that's what I applied to business school with. And people may say, well, why did you choose Kellogg over other schools? I will say this. Well, first, won't denigrate any other school, no point. But Kellogg was one of the few schools, because there are a couple, but one of the few schools that said, basically, their message was, the way we believe people should conduct business is this, humanely. What do I mean by that? Meaning, people have egos, people can do terrible things to each other simply for, I would argue, boredom or ego. And that's generally what happens in most business places, is there is someone who just cannot stand to be outshone even for a second, even if it's unintentional. And Kellogg teaches all of its students that has no place in business. And if people want to practice business or conduct business that way, that's their problem, because that's what it is, the problem. But it is not the way that they teach it. They teach it such that, because I don't want to make it sound all, how can I put it, that, the kid gloves never come off, because they need to. But they don't think it's a zero-sum game. Like, I lose 2, you gain 2. I give 5, you gain 5. No. I remember in strategy class, one of the first thing they taught was grow the pie. Instead of 90% share and a 10% share, splitting $10, so it's $9.01. Why not have, what if you take an 80% share and somebody else gets a 20, but if you're splitting 100 grand, you're talking about 80 grand and 20 grand. Well, who cares if you lost a percentage point or 10% or gained 1 or gained 3? It doesn't matter when it's not a zero-sum game, Now, it may matter in compensation, and you, again, it can get very complex. But the point is to understand that the goal, the primary goal, is grow the pie. Then think about the details, not necessarily temporally in that order, but if you're always thinking about everything in a zero-sum game, in a zero-sum mindset, all that does is create enemies. Because whoever's on the losing end of that game, oh, they're going to come after you even harder next time because they don't want to be a loser twice or 3 times over. And that is not the way business should be conducted, because when it is, guess what you're never going to see? That person is a return client. Now, if they have to do business with you, that's one thing. Again, that's going to be a really not fun relationship. But if they're a client and they can go to other vendors, they're not going to go to the person who treats it like a zero-sum game. They're going to be the person who maximizes value. And that's just all there is to it. And to be frank, there's only a couple schools who preach that, and Kellogg's one of them. And I like that. I like that with law. I like that with business. Because we can all be mean if we have to. We can all be hard-nosed. We can all be tough. But to be strategic, to be smart, to grow the pie where everyone can win, it is possible. And if you think it's not, you're just not thinking hard enough, because you can always find it. It's difficult, it's painful, but you can find it. And that's why I chose Kellogg. So when all was said and done, Kellogg really helped me when it came to ways to figure out the financial burden, but also I also was receiving pretty much pay from the VA at the same time to go to school. So that way I could pay my rent, buy books, I had free health care through Northwestern, not through the VA, so it was right there on campus. There's just a ton of benefits to really working your ass off up front when you get to school at a good institution that knows what it takes to really train a great business leader, because they're not doing it because it's a frill or it's a fringe benefit because you're such a great school and you're so smart. No, they don't think of it that way. They're doing it because they want you to learn as much as you can, be as productive as you can, because when you go out there with a Northwestern Kellogg stamp on your chest, that you must represent them. And if you fail, they're gonna think twice about hiring another grad from that school. So that's why I picked the school I picked. But when it comes to studying habits, studying strategy, all that crazy stuff, I'll make another video about that because this one's getting a little long. But I wanted to just start this series out because this channel is all about law and legal analysis. But all my clients have to face this transition at one point or another. And I'd rather share my story and give some non-legal information so that I can benefit my clients in another way. So I hope you've liked this video. If you want to watch more of my stuff, click right here is my next video, or hit the subscribe button, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.